At precisely 6:42 a.m. Caribbean Standard Time, 4 Sukhoi Su-30 Mk2 fighters screamed off the runway at Libertador Air Base, their Saturn AL-31F engines blazing with afterburners, generating 12,000 pounds of thrust per engine, creating orange flames visible from 15 kilometers away. Each Su-30 Mk2 carried a deadly payload specifically selected for this mission. 2 K2-31A anti-ship missiles capable of traveling at Mach 3.5 with 94-kilogram warheads designed to punch through warship hulls, 4 R-77 air-to-air missiles with 80-kilometer range for self-defense, and external fuel tanks extending their combat radius to 185 kilometers, just enough to reach their targets, attack, and return with minimal margin. The designated targets were docked at the U.S. naval base on Curaçao, specifically the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, USS Ramage, DDG-61, alongside frigate, USS Ingraham, FFG-61, and logistics support ship, USNS Bighorn. In exactly 34 minutes, those 8 Kh-31A missiles would be launched from 85 kilometers away, flying at 3.5 times the speed of sound, with the intention to sink or severely damage 3 vessels valued at over $2.4 billion and kill hundreds of American sailors, eating breakfast or conducting morning duties without knowing they had just become targets. But what the Venezuelan pilots didn't know, as they climbed to 11,000 meters with adrenaline pumping, was that their survival window had collapsed to approximately 78 minutes. The time it would take for the United States to detect the attack, respond with overwhelming force, and convert their 4 Su-30s worth $70 million each into fireballs falling over the Caribbean, leaving only oil slicks on the surface as epitaphs of the worst tactical decision Venezuela had made in decades. How exactly did Venezuelan military command reach the conclusion that directly attacking U.S. naval forces was a viable strategy? And what chain of events transformed what should have been a training exercise into an act of war that would trigger a response so brutal it redefined the power balance across the entire Caribbean? The answer begins with internal politics, strategic desperation, and fatally, a massive overestimation of their own capabilities combined with catastrophic underestimation of American willingness to respond with disproportionate force. 72 hours before the attack, in a defense ministry conference room in Caracas, 12 senior officers, including 3 generals, 2 admirals, and the defense minister met to discuss what they characterized as a military credibility crisis. For weeks, the United States had conducted operations Venezuela interpreted as intentional provocations, unauthorized reconnaissance drone overflights, photographing military installations with impunity, increasingly close naval patrols to territorial waters, joint military exercises with Colombia, including barely disguised invasion scenarios. Most irritating, interception of 3 equipment shipments from Iran before reaching Venezuelan ports, costing approximately $180 million in armament, never delivered. The Air Force general argued passionately that inaction was eroding troop morale and international credibility, suggesting a limited but visible military response was necessary. His specific proposal, conduct a surprise attack against the U.S. naval presence in Curaçao, causing sufficient damage to force temporary withdrawal, but not massive enough to provoke total war. In his analysis, there would be no full invasion response to a limited attack, especially if Venezuela immediately offered ceasefire and negotiations. The operational planning was dangerously rushed, taking only 58 hours from concept to execution. The plan was deceptively simple. 4 Su-30 Mk2s would take off in routine training formation, occurring twice weekly, fly north over the Caribbean toward their usual training zone, but continue toward Curaçao, staying low at 500 meters, where Earth's curvature would hide them from long-range radars. Then rapidly ascend to 11,000 meters, acquire naval targets with their N001VE radars, and launch 8 Kh-31A missiles from maximum range before egressing at supersonic speed. Major Carlos Mendoza, mission lead pilot with 2,400 hours in the Su-30, received sealed orders only 18 hours before takeoff. During pre-flight briefing with Lieutenant Colonel Jorge Vargas, Captain Ricardo Luna, and Lieutenant Andres Delgado, he told them it was advanced training but to prepare for changes. Vargas, most experienced with 1,890 hours, noted the armament configuration was unusual for training. 2 Kh-31A anti-ship missiles per aircraft was real combat load, not practice. The takeoff at 0642 was textbook perfect. The 4 Su-30 Mk2s rolled in sequence with 45-second intervals, accelerating down the 3,200-meter runway, taking off with 25-degree climb angle, reaching 3,000 meters in under 90 seconds. Mendoza felt the familiar thrust of twin Saturn AL-31F engines pressing him into his seat with 1.4 Gs as the aircraft punched through cloud layer, emerging into clear sky. 12 minutes into flight, 180 kilometers from Venezuelan coast, Mendoza opened the sealed envelope. The orders were explicit. Continue north to coordinates 92 kilometers southwest of Curaçao, ascend to 11,000 meters, activate N001VE radars in maritime search mode, acquire U.S. naval targets in Willemstad Port, launch all KH-31A missiles against identified warships with Arleigh Burke-class destroyer as primary priority, then immediate egress at maximum speed. The final phrase, execution critical to national security, refusal considered desertion under fire. At 0703, 140 kilometers from Curaçao, Mendoza ordered descent to 400 meters altitude, just above ocean surface, below radar horizon for most land-based systems. The four Su-30s descended in tight formation, reducing speed to 720 kilometers per hour. Delgado, youngest pilot with only 420 hours, visibly struggled with formation. What the pilots didn't know, they'd been detected much earlier. The ANSPPS-59 air surveillance radar at the U.S. Air Force Base in Curaçao had tracked the four Su-30s from takeoff. The long-range system marked them automatically as contacts of interest. When they descended to low altitude, they disappeared from ground radar but not from DSP infrared surveillance satellite in geosynchronous orbit, continuing to track their thermal signatures. At 0708, when projected flight path showed they were heading directly toward Curaçao, the duty analyst elevated alert. Captain James Mitchell, Naval Base Commander, received the call at 0709. He ordered the Ramage's Aegis missile defense system activated immediately, non-essential crew evacuate, damage control teams position, and F-16 fighters stationed in Curaçao prepare for emergency takeoff. He also ordered urgent message transmitted to the Su-30 on international emergency frequencies, warning they were approaching restricted airspace. Mendoza heard the warning at 0711 in English and Spanish. Venezuelan aircraft on heading 005 at 70 kilometers southwest of Curaçao. You are entering restricted airspace. Change course immediately south or be treated as hostile. His hand moved instinctively toward controls, but he remembered the desertion line. He transmitted to formation, maintain course, prepare for ascent to attack altitude in 90 seconds. At 0713, 52 kilometers from Curaçao, Mendoza ordered combat ascent. The four Su-30 Mk2 lifted noses simultaneously, climbing at 180 meters per second, with afterburners lit. At 8,000 meters, Mendoza activated his N001VE radar in maritime search mode. He immediately acquired three large contacts in Willemstad Port at 48 kilometers, one signature consistent with Arleigh Burke destroyer, one medium frigate, one support ship. On the Ramage, alarms exploded when the RWR system detected fire control radar illumination. The surface warfare officer had seconds to decide: activate SM-2 defensive missiles or prepare the Phalanx CIWS point defense gun. He ordered both while shouting, "Brace for impact." All hands. Critical problem. Ramage was docked, not at sea. Its Aegis systems were optimized for defense while moving. Being stationary made it easier target. Worse, one of two missile launchers was partially dismantled for maintenance, reducing defensive capacity 50%. Mendoza pressed target designation, assigning destroyer as primary for his two KH-31As. He transmitted Vargas attack destroyer with both missiles, Luna attack frigate, Delgado attack support ship. All launch on my mark in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Launch, launch, launch. He felt the Su-30 jump when first KH-31, a detached from left-wing pylon, solid rocket propellant igniting instantly, accelerating from 0 to Mach 1.8 in 8 seconds. Second missile followed 2.3 seconds later. Around him, 6 other white smoke trails marked launches. 8 KH-31A anti-ship missiles now converged toward port at speeds between Mach 1.8 and Mach 3.5, approximately 3,400 kilometers per hour. Time to impact 52 seconds. Mendoza violently turned his Su-30 left, executing 7G combat turn, beginning egress while radar warning systems screamed that multiple air defense radars had acquired him. The 8 Kane-31A missiles flew in dispersed formation, separated by 400 to 800 meters, following autonomous flight profiles. Their active radar seekers were still inactive, depending on inertial navigation and GPS for initial approach, reserving radar activation for final 12 kilometers. On the Ramage, Aegis had tracked missile launches immediately. Computers calculated trajectories and interception solutions. The system automatically prioritized threats, assigning 2 SM-2 missiles to intercept the 4 Kane-31 as directed toward Ramage. Vertical launchers opened and first 2 SM-2s ejected by pressurized gas, rising 30 meters before rocket motors ignited, accelerating toward targets at Mach 3.5. Each SM-2 cost $2.4 million and carried 115-kilogram fragmentation warhead. Problem was timing Kane-31, as traveling above Mach 3 covered a kilometer per second, making interception window extremely narrow. First SM-2 intercepted a Kane-31A at 18 kilometers. Warhead detonated 12 meters away, sending tungsten fragments that perforated the missile's fuselage, destroying guidance and detonating ramjet fuel. Second SM-2 missed by 8 meters, due to automatic evasive maneuver programmed into Kane-31A. Third SM-2 achieved successful interception at 14 kilometers, but fourth also missed, leaving 2 Kane-31As, continuing approach at under 10 kilometers. The Ramage's Phalanx CIWS detected 2 surviving missiles at 4 kilometers. The rotating 20mm Gatling gun turned toward threat, firing at 4,500 rounds per minute, creating a wall of metal. First Kane-31A flew into this fire curtain, multiple impacts perforating fuselage, causing it to deviate violently before disintegrating at 800 meters. But second Kane-31A passed between phalanx bursts, flying below optimal firing arc, reaching Ramage at 071453, exactly 83 seconds after launch. Impact occurred starboard side 4 meters above waterline below bridge. The 94-kilogram Torpex warhead detonated on contact, punching through 12mm steel hull like paper, creating 2.8-meter diameter hole. Overpressure wave traveling at 8,000 meters per second, instantly killed 9 sailors at nearby combat stations, seriously wounded 17 others. Meanwhile on frigate Ingraham, 2 Case-31As launched by Luna had been detected. The Oliver Hazard Perry-class frigate had significantly lesser defenses than Arleigh Burke destroyer. Its SM-1 missile system was 1970s technology, with effective range just 40 kilometers, and illumination radar could guide only 1 interceptor at a time. It launched first SM-1, which successfully intercepted first Case-31A at 22 kilometers, but had no time to reload against second missile, which impacted frigate at 0715 near engine room, destroying 1 of 2 gas turbines, killing 6 sailors, wounding 11. The USNS Bighorn, civilian-operated logistics support ship, had no anti-missile defenses, depending completely on protection from warships. 2 Case-31As launched by Delgado reached Bighorn without interception, impacting 4 seconds apart. First perforated fuel tank containing 2 million liters of marine diesel, initiating massive fire. Second impacted superstructure, collapsing bridge and killing captain and 3 watch officers. In airspace over Caribbean, the 4 Su-30 Mk2s had turned south, accelerating to maximum speed Mach 1.9, approximately 2,280 kilometers per hour, with afterburners consuming fuel at alarming rate. Mendoza calculated they had sufficient fuel to reach Venezuela with just 8% margin. Their radar warning system screamed continuously, indicating multiple tracking radars had acquired them, but no missiles launched yet. What he didn't know: the reason they hadn't been attacked wasn't because they'd escaped, but because American response was being carefully orchestrated for maximum effectiveness. Aboard USS George H.W. Bush carrier, operating in international waters, 380 kilometers north of Venezuela, Rear Admiral Patricia, commanding the carrier strike group, received attack notification 40 seconds after impacts. She ordered 4 FA-18E Super Hornets on catapult alert launched immediately to intercept Super 30s before they reached Venezuelan airspace. She also ordered 2 F-35Cs prepare for secondary launch and E-2D Hawkeye provide continuous tracking. First 2 Super Hornets catapulted at 0717, accelerating 0 to 270 km per hour in 2.4 seconds. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, lead pilot with 1,680 flight hours, received target coordinates from E-2D while climbing, reaching Mach 1.3 at 4 minutes after launch, continuing to accelerate toward Mach 1.6 in pursuit. The Super 30s were 240 kilometers ahead at slightly higher speed, but Morrison had angle advantage, calculating he'd reach missile range in 11 minutes. He verified his 4 AIM-120D AMRAAM missiles were ready, each with maximum range 180 kilometers against non-maneuvering targets. At 0724, Morrison had 4 Super 30s on radar at 156 kilometers, separated in dispersed formation, flying Mach 1.85, gradually descending from 11,000 to 8,500 meters. He waited until distance reduced to 142 kilometers, then selected 4 targets, assigning 1 AMRAAM to each Super 30, pressed release trigger 4 times with 1.8-second intervals. Missiles detached from pylons, rocket motors igniting, accelerating to Mach 4. Mendoza heard missile alert at 0725. His RWR system indicated air-to-air missiles had acquired him. He transmitted urgent warning, incoming missiles from north, execute evasion Delta now. 4 Super 30s executed evasive maneuvers, breaking formation, dispersing in random directions while launching chaff cartridges, ejecting millions of metallized strips to confuse missile seekers. Mendoza pulled stick back, executing 60-degree climb with 8 Gs, then rolled violently left and descended. First AMRAAM, pursuing Delgado, impacted at 0725-34. 18-kilogram fragmentation warhead detonated 4 meters from Super 30, sending 3,000 fragments perforating left wing, severing hydraulic lines, destroying control surfaces. Aircraft began rolling uncontrollably. Delgado ejected successfully, parachute deploying at 6,400 meters. Second AMRAAM, pursuing Luna, was fooled by chaff, passing 40 meters below Super 30, self-destructing when it lost lock. Third AMRAAM, guiding toward Vargas, ignored chaff completely. Vargas transmitted final message, "Tell my family I'm sorry," before AMRAAM directly impacted his Super 30 at 072551. Explosion disintegrated aircraft, no parachute. Vargas died instantly. Morrison launched 2 additional AMRAAMs at 0726. Mendoza knew his only chance was reaching Venezuelan airspace. He pushed throttle to maximum, afterburner consuming last fuel reserves, accelerating to Mach 2.0. Distance to Venezuelan airspace, 140 kilometers. Morrison's decision was instantaneous. Super 30s had attacked American ships, killed American personnel. They were legitimate targets regardless where they flew. The AMRAAM tracking Mendoza adjusted course, impacting Super 30 at 0727, 18 at 92 kilometers from Venezuelan coast. Explosion destroyed left engine and tail. Mendoza ejected successfully. Luna was last survivor when Morrison's final AMRAAM caught him at 78 kilometers from coast. Explosion was catastrophic, killing him instantly. In 4 minutes 44 seconds, all 4 Super 30 Mk2s had been destroyed. 3 pilots killed, representing loss of approximately $280 million in aircraft, plus incalculable loss of trained pilots.